This episode is English because I received the same topic request from my university as a guest speech, but this is actually one of the most frequently asked questions from my channel inbox. Whether giving a speech, writing content, or expressing ideas, we all want to make sure that the message can be delivered to the audience efficiently and effectively without having bias or losing attention. But in reality, it can be very tricky to organize our thoughts and to express them in a logical way, especially when delivering them verbally. This episode will discuss 3 common mistakes people make when delivering the information. It will also share 4 secrets that may help us build a foundation of thinking structure that can be used to better express ourselves in the long run with the practice. Mistake number 1. Creating content without understanding the purpose or the audience, aka talking to ourselves. It is common sense that people want to deliver thoughts and express opinions through their content. However, if we are talking without considering who we are talking to and why, our audience may not want to listen whatever we say. This is the biggest cause why many great ideas were buried, since when some speakers express the ideas, they focus too much on letting themselves shine without considering the audience benefit. Well, if people cannot see why this is useful to me, why would they listen anyway? Mistake number 2. Using the same strategy for different types of content. Imagine that we're reading an article, listening to a speech, watching a video on the same subject. How would we interact differently? When it's on paper, we tend to skim it, catch the frame, the bullet points, the charts, try to get the overall ideas as quickly as possible. When it's through videos, we want to understand what they're about at the very beginning, making sure that this is the right information we're looking for before wasting our time. When it's face-to-face, we need to keep our brain active and to be able not to lose our attention, since we're kind of stuck here and we cannot jump out of the window. Therefore, from a speaker's perspective, we need to be clear with our content type and use the best strategy to hook the audience attention and participation. Otherwise, they may drop out or be distracted easily. Mistake number 3. Ignoring the simplicity while being professional. Well, it is true that we need to somehow keep it professional when creating content or having a formal conversation. But being professional does not necessarily mean we need to keep it hard to understand. In other words, don't use professional jargon. A great speaker can simplify complex things with basic words. On the other hand, experienced audience can easily tell if you're sharing great ideas or just bluffing. When our content is too hard to understand, it doesn't just create a barrier to our audience, it may also let them question our authenticity. With those 3 mistakes in mind, here are some recommendations that can help us to better organize our ideas and deliver the right type of message to the right audience in a logical way. Number 1. Creating an understanding outline. Thinking from our audience's perspective. Use one of our old content, whether a speech draft or an article. Use the exact same topic. Quickly draft an outline based on our previous ideas. Then put it aside. Give ourselves some core reasons why we're creating this content. Who is our audience? How will they interact with this content? What they're expecting from us? What points our audience may find useful? Once we write them down, we may do a comparison between how we wrote our content and what we think people may expect. Most of the time, there is always a difference. Therefore, our mission is to find a way to balance it, which I will mention in the next point. By doing this more often, we'll get used to thinking from a different perspective, focus on the audience's benefits other than ourselves. It will help us to deliver the same message in a way that is easier to be accepted. Number 2. Ask ourselves, can questions, examples, surprises, and humor fill the gap? What question can I ask? Questions are used when we want to inspire our audience or to make them think. Bringing questions is a good way to start our point or to end our content with many possibilities. Using questions can be more persuasive than solely expressing our opinions. Though, if we do use a question, make sure people will have the answer we expect. Otherwise, we're digging a hole for ourselves and will only make the situation more difficult. Is this a proper example? Examples and experiences are probably the most powerful tool to help the audience understand our point. However, this is also where simplicity plays a big role. When we're giving examples or sharing our experiences, people don't have much time to process the information. If what we share is a rare example, an experience that the audience cannot easily relate to, a table or graph that doesn't have a short conclusion, then it won't help much on convincing the audience. Can I add a surprise to grab people's attention? Surprises are very effective in terms of gathering attention, especially when giving a long speech. An unusual fact, an unpredictable number, an unexpected answer, or just a simple gesture like this can help our audience focus. Though we cannot use this too often, or people will be easily distracted. Is it humor or awkwardness? People with a good sense of humor can be very attractive in public speaking or daily conversation. However, we should try to keep it spontaneous, because making improper jokes or jokes with culture barriers can be even worse than not making any. A good way to store our sense of humor is to note down interesting thoughts while we are organizing the ideas or having daily conversation, so that we can find a better occasion to share them through our content. While we are using them, pay extra attention to the audience's feedback, which can also help us do better in word choice, using the appropriate tone and the right rhythm. Whether questions, examples, surprises, or the sense of humor, they all require us to actively find the best usage in real life. When someone says, you may improve your proficiency with more readings and experiences, this method of filling the gap is exactly how we can apply them into practice. Number 3, limit ourselves. Less is more. Summarizing our content with a limit. Whatever we want to explain, try to do so in one sentence, then turn it to a structure and fill in details later. This method will help us to focus on the important message. Don't be afraid of missing anything, because people who only read the table of content can never understand the whole book. But it's mostly because they don't want to. Therefore, if we want to have a successful pitch or an interactive conversation, we need to deliver the core message short and sweet, along with some unanswered questions or untold stories that can inspire the audience to be eager to know more. Sometimes, less is more. If we want to talk more, we need to learn how to talk less first. Number 4, close the loop. Strengthen the audience's memory while keeping our consistency. If we are giving too much information during one session, we should offer our audience a wrap-up. Regardless of the format, the audience always needs something to help themselves to remember the message. If they can't find a structure or clue, and as speakers, we just talk however we want, it will be hard for them to pay attention and memorize the information. It will also be challenging for us keeping the consistency of the content. Adding a wrap-up doesn't mean we have to copy-paste our opening or summary. We can make a fun story that includes all points we have mentioned. We can find the interrelationship between each point and quote each other. We can also categorize them, like this video. 3 mistakes, 4 secrets. Speaking of which, just to remember what they are. See? This is an example. It might sound sudden, but I'll limit myself to conclude this episode in one question. We have the freedom to say, people have the freedom to listen. So, what should we do to make them listen? This is the channel that keeps learning with you. I'm Shashai. See you next time. An unusual fact, an unpredictable, You know what is worse than telling a joke that doesn't make any sense? Is after a joke, people around you were experiencing a 3-second silence. Don't ask me how I know that.